video we are going to cut this UPVC skirting board. As you can see, the skirting is hollow, so you cannot just cut it and chamfer the edge like you would do with solid wood skirting boards. In this bathroom there is a long length and a tiny piece at the end. Because the bathroom walls are square, I have been lucky and just cut a 45-degree mitre on each end. To fix these in position, we will just use some grab adhesive at a later date. Normally when cutting skirting boards you mitre external angles but scribe cut internal angles. But in this example we've been lucky and can mitre the internal angle. I'll put a link in the description to an article on scribing skirting boards. Here we just need a small piece to go from the door frame to the shower enclosure. So I'm measuring the size and we'll cut the piece accordingly. I have drawn the measurements on a scrap piece. To do the cutting I'm using the Evolution double bevel mitre saw with a specialist blade. The blade is tungsten carbide tipped and has a lot more teeth than a normal blade, which gives a really good quality cut. Because the skirting board is approximately 100mm or 4 inches deep, we can't cut normal mitres, so we have to do bevel cuts instead. There is the small piece that I've already cut for the mitre in the corner. As you can see, the cut is very clean. It's always a good idea to do some practice cuts before doing the actual cuts that are needed. For each cut I'm using a sacrificial piece of timber. Sometimes more than one piece to ensure the cut is perfect. If you just lie the material on the saw bed and attempt to make a cut, it might end up looking like this. I should point out that it is incredibly difficult to clamp the material down when making bevel cuts due to the clamp being in the way of the cutting head. Obviously you are going to need a good pair of safety glasses and ear defenders when doing this. It is also advisable to have the saw connected to a vacuum, but mine is on another job. For the short piece next to the shower we need a return cutting for the left hand side of the skirting board. This is cut by cutting at 45 degrees first and then using an offcut to measure how long the piece needs cutting. Now I'm returning the blade to the normal 90-degree cutting position, ensuring that it is locked in position. I'm now positioning the skirting so that the cut line matches exactly with the side of the blade. Don't forget to allow for the thickness of the blade. Once the skirting board is in the exact correct position, I am sliding the sacrificial piece of chipboard over the top and clamping it down firmly. I thought I could do a straight downwards cut, but that did not go all the way through the skirting, so I had to use the slide feature to complete the cut slowly. And that is the piece that I have just cut. Here is an offcut. You can see that it's a perfect fit. I'm now beveling the machine so that I can do another 45-degree cut. Basically you just unscrew the handle and then pull out the pin at the front and bevel the saw over. Then tighten the handle. You can cut from 0 to 45 degrees this way. I'm always clamping the piece to be cut down and always using a sacrificial piece of timber on top. When doing the cut, I pull the saw out as far as it will go, release the guide and get the blade going to its full speed before slowly pushing the blade through the material. I then take my finger off the switch and allow the blade to stop rotating before returning the blade to its starting point. You can see that this gives a perfect cut. If you don't have a sliding mitre saw, it will be possible to make cuts using a hand-held mitre saw like this, but it's much more time consuming and difficult. Before anyone says that it's easy for me because I have all the tools, I once cut all door architraves and all skirting boards for a 3-bedroom terraced house using one of these 20 years ago. Sometimes you need to cut a small piece. You will notice that I've put a sacrificial piece of timber in front of the fence. This is to prevent breakout when exiting the cut. I have then used another scrap piece to get it level before adding a sacrificial piece on top, which can now be clamped down. It does not matter what kind of wood you use for the sacrificial piece against the fence as long as it is parallel. Simply pull the cutting head towards you, release the guide, squeeze the trigger switch until full speed is reached, then slowly push the blade through the material. Remove your finger from the switch and let the blade stop before returning the cutting head to the start position. It's critical that you move the fences out of the way when making bevel cuts, or the saw will cut straight through them. I'm now cutting this piece at 45 degrees and the return piece that I cut earlier will be glued onto this. As you can see, that fits perfectly. I've now applied a piece of masking tape and I'm drawing on the cut lines that I measured earlier. I'm then cutting this out using a fine-toothed blade in a hacksaw. Because I have already applied a bead of silicone to the shower tray, I'm using the siliconing tool to mark a line which I will then cut off. I've now just put on some disposable gloves and I'm using super glue to glue the return in position. It's critical when you do this that you don't get the glue on the face of the skirting board. So that's the piece once it's been glued together. I'm not fixing these in position yet, but that's simply a case of gluing them in position using grab adhesive. I've also cut a piece between the shower and the bath, but that needs cutting to length once the bath panel is fitted.